It's great to be with you, David, for the introduction here and for all the work. The NFIB does such a great job for small businesses and is really, truly the voice of small business in Washington. They are there all the time. I know back in my family business days that we were members and always looked to them for how people had voted, the issues of the day that affected our business. And so thank you very much for what the NFIB does and for hosting this here today. The main subject certainly is the concern that we have and we all share as small business people. What is going to happen at the end of the year when the current tax laws expire? And what that means for you as a small business person, what it means for our economy. NFIB just sponsored a study by Ernst & Young, which basically said that if in fact the tax provisions that are currently in place were to expire, that we would lose in this economy. We've got 8.2% unemployment today, but we would lose about 710,000 jobs in this economy, and also would slow down the rate of growth by about 1.3%. So this is an absolute critical issue for us all to actually continue to have the tax policies that are in place extended. It means so much for small business when you look at what will happen if you're subchapter S corporation, a family partnership, where you take the income out of your small business as personal income. It will be a dramatic tax increase. On top of that, with the president's health care bill, there would be a 3.8% charge on top of your capital gains and also dividend income, which would certainly, we want an economy where we're actually investing and hiring people, and to punish people for actually doing what we need to have done today in this economy is exactly the wrong direction. This next week, we will be voting on the floor of the House the president's plan, if there's a second Democrat plan, and we'll be passing the Republican extension of the current tax law. And that is absolutely critical. The problem today in small business that I hear from people everywhere is the uncertainty that's out there. What is going to happen after the first of the year? On top of the tax policy, the regulatory schemes that are out there, and the uncertainty of what is going to happen to you, what mandate are you going to have in your small business next, is just holding back people. They're in a defensive mode. They're saying that I can't, without certainty, invest, I can't buy equipment, I can't hire more people, because I don't know what Washington's going to do to me next. And in that environment, you're not going to see the kind of job creation, the investment that we have to get this economy going. The one reason that I first ran for Congress was basically some regulations that we had in our family farm and seed business operation. Basically, how much dust comes off a wagon if it's unloading 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Now, I don't know there's a wagon that's big, and especially when the dust basically went right back on the field that it came from. But it costs us about $15,000 to try to comply with that regulation. And what happens to, when you comply, when you file your report, it goes into somebody's drawer someplace, never to be seen again. But it's those type of things that are so frustrating, that cost so much money for small businesses. And really, we're going to see a lot of small businesses have a lot of difficulty surviving today if, in fact, these kind of regulatory threats are out there, the uncertainty as far as the tax code is concerned. So I'm really here today to listen to you folks, to try and answer your questions. So as far as I'm concerned, we can just open it up. But again, thank you all for coming this morning. It's a great turnout. Yes?
I'm concerned about an article in the Wall Street Journal this morning in which they mentioned the potential for a shutdown September 30th. And apparently, Harry Reid and his cohorts have a plan where we would either be voting on something against the principles of the Republicans, increase the tax, et cetera, et cetera. Are you aware of what might be in place to obviate that occurring?
No, absolutely. I serve as chairman of one of the subcommittees on appropriations, transportation and HUD subcommittee. In the House of Representatives, we have actually passed a budget each of the last 2 years. We have moved all of the appropriation bills out of at least subcommittee. We've passed, I think, 7 of them on the floor of the House. The Senate, for 3 years now, has not, the Democrat-controlled Senate has not passed a budget. I mean, by the Budget Act of 1974, by law, they have to do it, but they have basically just ignored the law. And so they're trying to have a crisis, in essence. I believe what will happen is that we will have a continuing resolution which will extend funding for the federal government at least up till next March. And I think you'll soon be hearing an agreement with the administration, with the Senate, and the House to basically do exactly that. Now, it's very frustrating as an appropriator that we have not been able to put the changes in that we worked so hard all year for. On my particular bill, that again, transportation and HUD, housing, urban development, it's in total about $120 billion, just my one bill. And just to put that in perspective, this whole budget for the state of Iowa is about $6 billion. So my bill is 20 times larger than the budget for the state of Iowa. But in that bill, we had some real reforms. We actually reduced spending. I have the largest reduction in spending of any of the appropriation bills on a percentage basis, about $4 billion. Half of that bill is discretionary, half is mandatory. And we actually had real reductions. We stopped some of the wasteful spending that the administration was asking for. And what concerns me is we're not going to get those reforms done with a continuing resolution, because basically what you do is just extend the current spending patterns. But that's what's going to happen. So the idea is basically to get it to next March. We'll see what happens in November, and to see then how the bills are written. It is very frustrating for me as an appropriator, because in March next year I should be writing next year's bill rather than worrying about taking care of last year's business. And trying to get the reductions, trying to get the savings and efficiencies that we all need. But I do not believe that we're going to have this the crisis as far as a government shutdown. That was really a long answer there, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Tom, are executive orders constitutional? I mean, both presidents of both parties do them. But where in the Constitution does it say you can do it?
What they're using as far as, for national security reasons, sometimes they have to make findings and give executive orders. Also, in most of the legislation that you'll find, in that it will say the secretary shall determine. That's where Congress doesn't want to get down to the fine points and tell everything that the secretary will determine. Under that basis, in essence, there is some latitude for a directive from the administration as to how they're going to proceed or how they're going to enact things. And that's what I think has always been the major problem, is that the lack of oversight that we have on some of the bureaucracies, some of these executive orders. Congress certainly could stand up and say, no, you can't do that, by withholding funds, things like that, for activities. But in fact, like you said, both political parties, both sides have all, presidents want to have a great deal of latitude, and I'm very concerned about Congress ceding a lot more power to the executive branch. We've got to rein that in. We've got to have controls. And again, the lack of oversight is very, very frustrating. Everybody, you know, people always want to have new legislation. I came home and I did this and this without clearing out maybe some of the bills that had been passed in the past that maybe are doing the same thing. Yes?
Congressman, I have a little bit, a few more questions about the